My plan for the night was simple. Show up to Evan's party, stay just long enough to not look lame, then slip out before the drunk drama kicked in. It was one of those half-house, half-yard college parties where the floor gets sticky fast and the music is always slightly too loud for conversation but never loud enough to cover awkward silence. I didn't expect to see Liam there. Liam was Evan's older brother, the one who'd already graduated, already moved out, and already been permanently filed in my mind as out of reach. He was quiet, tall, broad-shouldered, always dressed in blacks and grays like he was trying not to be noticed, which never worked. Every time I'd been over at their house growing up, he'd be around somewhere. A shadow passing through the kitchen, a closed door down the hall. We never really talked, not because he was rude, more like he just didn't have a reason to. So when I spotted him in the kitchen that night, leaning against the counter with a beer, arms crossed, surveying the chaos like he'd seen it all before, I almost turned around. I wasn't even sure why I felt weird about it. It's not like he was watching me. Except, he was. His eyes met mine across the room, just for a second. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't casual. It was the kind of look that makes your skin prickle and your stomach tighten, because you don't know what it means, but you know it means something. I tried to ignore it. Spent the next hour talking to random people, sipping a warm drink that tasted vaguely of pineapple and regret, pretending like I didn't feel his eyes following me every time I moved. He didn't come over, didn't say anything, just watched. By the time the party started to die down, I was ready to leave. Evan was completely wasted, half asleep in a beanbag in the living room, and I didn't want to deal with waiting on an overpriced rideshare in the cold. I had just grabbed my jacket when I felt a presence behind me, not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel. "You heading out?" I turned. Liam stood there, still holding the same beer, still unreadable. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. Didn't plan to stay long. He nodded once, then tilted his head toward the front door. "I'll give you a ride." It wasn't a question. I hesitated. "You don't have to. I can call an Uber." He shrugged. "You could, but I'm offering." That was it. No smile, no charm. Just him, looking at me like he wasn't used to being told no, and didn't expect to be, so I followed him out. The ride was quiet at first. His car smelled faintly of something clean, like pine and leather. The dash lights made his face look sharper, more angular. He didn't turn on music, just drove, eyes steady on the road, one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually on the gear shift. "You don't drink much," he said after a while, voice low. I glanced at him. "Not really, not my thing." He nodded like that confirmed something for him. "Evan gets stupid when he drinks, always has," I laughed. "Yeah, he passed out with a slice of pizza on his face." That got the tiniest smirk out of him. "Sounds about right." Then silence again, but not uncomfortable. Just charged. When we pulled up in front of my building, I unbuckled my seatbelt, my fingers fumbling slightly. "Thanks for the ride." I reached for the door handle, but his voice stopped me. "Hold up." I turned to him, eyebrows raised. "What's up?" He didn't answer right away, just looked at me, like he was seeing something for the first time. Then, slowly, he leaned forward, and instead of opening his own door, he reached over and locked mine. The sound of the lock clicking into place was small, but it hit like a thunderclap. My breath caught in my throat. "I shouldn't," he said, almost to himself. "But I want to." Then his hand touched my jaw, fingers light but sure, and for the first time in years of knowing Liam from a distance, I realized this wasn't about a favor. He didn't drive me home because I was Evan's friend. He drove me home because he wanted me alone. And now we were. When his hand brushed my jaw, I froze. Not because I was scared, but because nothing about Liam had ever felt real before. He'd always been this quiet, unattainable presence in the background. Someone you knew existed, but never imagined, would orbit anywhere near you. He was the older brother, the adult, the guy who disappeared into his own world after brief, forgettable cameos at family barbecues or school pickup lines. But here, now, his fingers were on my skin, his eyes locked on mine, and we were in a closed car, on a dead quiet street, and there was no one else around. Liam, I started, voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, he said, just as quietly. He didn't move any closer. He just stayed there, his thumb lightly against the curve of my jaw like he was testing a theory he hadn't dared ask out loud. I didn't know you, I trailed off. I didn't even know what I was trying to say. His eyes flicked over my face. Didn't know I noticed you? I swallowed hard. You've never said a word to me. He nodded slowly. Doesn't mean I wasn't looking. The way he said it, low, calm, like it wasn't a big deal, made my chest tighten. Because if he'd been looking, I'd never noticed. Or maybe I had, but I just assumed he didn't see me back. Why would he? I was Evan's friend. Quiet, normal, always just around. And Liam? He was the kind of guy who seemed like he belonged to someone else's story. You sure about this? I asked, not because I didn't want it, I did, but because I needed to hear him say it. I needed to know this wasn't some impulsive move he'd regret. He looked at me for a long moment, then he pulled his hand back and killed the engine. I'm parked behind your building, he said, eyes still on mine. No one's gonna see. I blinked. You want to come up? He didn't answer right away, just leaned back in his seat and gave me a look I couldn't read. Except that it wasn't indecision. It was something heavier, warmer, like the idea had already been turning over in his head for a while. I want to, he said simply. If you do, I nodded once. Yeah, I do. We didn't speak as we got out of the car. The night air was cold enough to sting a little, which helped calm the noise in my head. He followed close behind me. His footsteps measured. My hands were shaking just slightly as I unlocked the front door and led him up the stairs. Not from nerves. From the sheer weight of not knowing what this night was going to mean when it was over. When I pushed open the door to my apartment, I stepped aside to let him in. He walked in slowly, looking around like he was seeing the space in a completely different light now. It's nice, he said, glancing at the living room. You live alone? Yeah. Roommate moved out a couple months ago. I shut the door behind us. He turned toward me just as I reached for the lock. Don't, he said, voice quiet. I froze. What? He stepped forward, one hand reaching past me, and locked it himself. That sound again. That soft, definitive click. Then silence. He was close now. Close enough that I could smell him. Clean, subtle. Like the inside of his car and the hoodie he was still wearing. His eyes didn't move from mine. You keep looking at me like you think I'm gonna change my mind, he said. I don't get it, I admitted. You've barely acknowledged me before tonight. His mouth twitched slightly. You think I haven't noticed you? You've never said anything. He leaned in, just enough for his breath to touch my cheek. Doesn't mean I haven't imagined. I let out a shaky breath. Imagined what? His voice dropped. You saying yes. And that was it. The space between us disappeared. His hand slid back to my jaw like it belonged there, and before I could even process the movement, his mouth was on mine. It wasn't rough. It wasn't urgent. It was controlled. Careful. The kind of kiss that tells you someone's been thinking about it for a while, and is trying not to ruin it by going too fast. But my knees almost gave out anyway. I kissed him back, one hand curling into the front of his hoodie without even thinking. He made a low sound in his throat, like surprise, or maybe relief, and pulled me closer. My back hit the door, his body pressed against mine. Warm, solid, real. And I realized, as his fingers found the back of my neck, that I wasn't the only one who'd wanted this. He pulled away just enough to speak, his lips brushing mine. Still don't get it? I shook my head. I think I'm starting to. Liam's hand slid under the hem of my shirt, resting lightly against my waist. Not moving. Just holding me there. His eyes searched mine, and for the first time that night he looked unsure. You want me to stop? Say it now, he said. Voice steady, but soft. Because if I go any further, I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. I didn't say anything. Instead, I leaned in again, pressing my mouth to his like it was the answer to every question he hadn't dared ask. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about tonight. This was something that had been waiting quietly in the background, just like him. And now, it wasn't waiting anymore. The next few minutes were a blur of motion and heat and breath. He kissed like someone who knew exactly what he was doing, but didn't want to rush it. Every move was deliberate, measured. His hands never fumbled. One stayed low on my waist, the other skimmed up my spine, dragging heat along with it. I couldn't even think straight. I just let it happen, clinging to him like gravity had shifted and he was the only thing keeping me upright. When he finally broke the kiss, he didn't step back, just rested his forehead against mine, his breathing shallow. I've wanted to do that since. I don't even know when, he muttered. I could barely speak. Then why didn't you? Because you're Evan's friend, he said simply. And you were younger. Still kind of are. I pulled back slightly, enough to look at him. I'm not that much younger. No, he agreed. You're not. There was something new in his face now. A kind of tight restraint, like he was holding himself in place with pure will. His eyes dropped to my mouth again and his grip on my waist tightened, just a little. You really want this? He asked, low and serious. I nodded without thinking. I do. That was all it took. He backed me toward the couch like he'd already mapped it out. When the backs of my knees hit the cushions, he kissed me again. Deeper this time, more sure. I sat down without being told. He followed, kneeling between my legs. His hands braced on either side of my hips like he was caging me in but also holding himself back. You drive me insane, he said, against my throat. I shivered. He pushed my shirt up slowly, exposing my stomach, then leaned in and kissed just above my waistband. The feeling of his mouth there, hot breath, soft pressure, made my whole body jolt. Liam. He looked up at me, eyes dark. Tell me if I go too far. I nodded. You won't. That made him smirk. You don't know what too far looks like. I swallowed hard. Show me. Something changed in him when I said that. His hand slid under my shirt and pushed it up fully. I pulled it over my head and tossed it aside. He touched me then. Not rushed, not greedy, like he was memorizing every inch. Palms warm, fingers calloused. You've been working out, he murmured, almost like a joke. Not really, I said, breathless. Maybe a little. It shows. He leaned in and kissed the center of my chest, then lower and lower. When his hands went to my belt, he paused, waiting for me to stop him. I didn't. I just lifted my hips slightly to help him. His mouth curved into the barest smile, then he went quiet again, focused. Every touch after that felt like something I'd been waiting for but never realized I'd get. It wasn't just about lust. It was the way he watched me, the way his hands moved like he already knew my body. Like he'd imagined this a dozen times before and wanted to get it right. I don't know how long we stayed like that, tangled together on my couch, limbs knotted, breathing uneven. The room was silent except for the low sounds we made. Half-muffled gasps and the rustle of fabric and the creak of old furniture and the occasional whisper, "You feel so good. God, I've wanted this. Can't believe you're letting me." And me whispering his name back like it was something sacred. When we were both finally still, sweaty, dazed, sprawled across my worn couch like we'd just survived something, we didn't speak right away. Liam's hand rested on my chest. Mine was still hooked around his back. We stayed like that for a while, catching our breath. Then he broke the silence. This changes things, he said quietly. Yeah, I murmured. It does. You okay with that? I turned to face him. I'm more than okay. He let out a small breath, like he hadn't realized he was holding it. Then he leaned over and kissed me again. Softer this time. Less urgency, more something else. Like a promise. We didn't rush to clean up. Didn't jump into clothes or pretend like nothing had happened. Instead, he reached down, grabbed the throw blanket off the end of the couch, and pulled it over us. I shifted closer, and he didn't hesitate. Just wrapped an arm around me like it was the most natural thing in the world. You staying? I asked. His voice was close to my ear. Try getting rid of me now." I smiled into his chest, the smell of him grounding me. Outside, the street was quiet. Inside, my whole life had shifted without warning. The guy who never talked to me was now the only one I wanted to hear. I woke up before him. The light from the window was soft and pale, the kind that filters in early, before the city remembers to start making noise. For a second, I forgot where I was. My back ached slightly, my legs tangled in something warm, and it took my brain a few slow seconds to register the body pressed up against mine. Liam. His arm was draped over my waist, his face nuzzled somewhere near my shoulder, breathing slow and steady. One of his legs had wedged between mine during the night, and he hadn't moved since. It was intimate, too intimate to be a mistake. And that's what made my heart start to race. Not because I was panicking, but because for the first time in a long time, I didn't want something to end the moment it was over. I lay there, frozen in that quiet bubble of morning, watching his eyelashes twitch lightly as he slept. His face looked different in the soft light, less guarded, almost peaceful. Not the same stoic older brother who used to breeze past me without so much as a glance. Not the guy who sat alone at parties, arms crossed, unreadable. This was someone else entirely. He stirred a little, his arm tightening around me instinctively, like his body wasn't ready to let go. "You're awake," he mumbled against my skin. "Barely," I whispered. He didn't move much, just let out a low, sleepy sound and buried his face into my shoulder again. It made me laugh softly, because I didn't know Liam had that in him. The warmth, the clinginess. "Do you always cuddle like this?" I asked. He groaned. "Only when I'm exhausted," and spent the night doing something I've been thinking about for months. I turned a little so I could see his face. His eyes were half open now, hazy, but still full of that intensity that had caught me off guard the night before. "You thought about this for months?" I asked. He didn't smile. He just nodded, slowly. "Yeah." I tried not to. "But every time you were at the house, every time Evan mentioned you," I blinked. "You never said anything." "Because I couldn't," he said, a little too quickly. "You were off limits." That word sat heavy between us. Off limits. I pushed myself up slightly, resting on one elbow. "Do you think Evan would be pissed?" Liam sighed, then ran a hand over his face. "I think he'd be surprised, maybe a little confused, but pissed? I don't know. He's your friend. You'd know better than I would." I nodded slowly, chewing on my lip. "We don't talk about stuff like this. He's never known I'm—" "You don't have to explain," Liam said quickly. "That's your thing." I looked down at the blanket pooled around our waists. His hand found mine under it. Fingers warm, solid, lacing through mine like it was automatic. "What are we doing?" I asked, quieter now. "Was this just a one-time thing, or—" "I don't want it to be." The way he said it, no hesitation, no apology, sent a wave of something through me I couldn't name. Not lust, not even excitement. It was something deeper, something that scared me a little, in the best way. "I don't either," I said. His thumb brushed over the back of my hand. "But if this is going to be anything, we can't hide it." I winced. "That's going to be complicated." He nodded, eyes still on me. "Yeah, but I'd rather deal with complicated than pretend this didn't happen." I didn't expect that. I figured the morning after would bring some awkward goodbye, maybe a "we'll see" or a joke to brush it off. But he was still here, in my bed, holding my hand. "I'm not used to people sticking around," I admitted. "Well," he said, sliding his hand to my cheek, "get used to it." That made me smile. Probably too much. We spent the rest of the morning in slow motion. He stayed while I made coffee. He teased me about my choice of cereal. We didn't rush anything. Didn't talk about labels or rules, just existed in the same space, like it was something we'd done 100 times before. But even as I let myself enjoy the comfort, a part of me kept bracing for the fallout. Because this wasn't just anyone. This was Liam, Evan's older brother, the guy who'd always been off limits until he wasn't. And I had no idea what came next. By Monday, reality started to catch up. I went back to class. Liam went back to work. Texts got shorter. Phone calls turned into voicemails. And even though I told myself not to overthink it, I did. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him. Sometimes it was, but sometimes it wasn't. And when it wasn't, that quiet little fear crept in. Maybe this whole thing had been heat of the moment. Maybe he was already pulling away, the way people do when something feels too good too fast. But then Friday came. I was halfway through a late-night study session, eyes blurry from staring at the same paragraph, when a knock came at the door. Not a text, not a call, a knock. I opened it, and there he was, hoodie on, hair a little messy, that same unreadable expression I'd seen on him 100 times, except now I could read it. "Hey," he said. My heart jumped, but I kept it cool. "Hey, everything okay?" He nodded. "Was driving by. Figured I'd stop." "You just happened to be driving by my apartment at 11:30 on a Friday night?" I asked, crossing my arms. He smirked. "Told you I'd rather deal with complicated than pretend nothing happened." I stepped aside. "Come in." He did, walked right past me, and dropped onto the couch like he'd done it 100 times. I closed the door and joined him, both of us sitting shoulder to shoulder in that quiet, not talking kind of way that still said everything. After a few minutes, I finally asked, "So, what are we doing, Liam?" He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I don't know, but I can't stop thinking about you." That landed like a punch to the chest, in a good way. He kept talking, voice low. "At first, it was just little things, like how you laughed at stuff no one else thought was funny, or how you were the only person who ever offered to help clean up after parties. Stupid things. But then, it was everything." I swallowed. "And now I'm sitting in your apartment hoping you feel the same." I didn't respond right away. I just looked at him. Really looked. I'd spent years thinking of Liam as someone distant, cool, aloof, untouchable. But sitting there, nervously running a hand through his hair, waiting for me to say something, he didn't look untouchable. He looked real, and vulnerable in a way I hadn't expected. "I do feel the same," I said. I don't know how we make this work." He nodded slowly. "We take it one step at a time. And Evan?" His jaw tightened slightly. "Eventually, I'll tell him. Eventually." The word hung there, heavy. I didn't push. I just nodded. "Okay." He let out a breath, then looked around. "You still have that cereal?" I blinked. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious." That stuff slaps. So we ended up in the kitchen at midnight, sharing a box of knockoff Cinnamon Toast Crunch and leaning against the counter like two high schoolers sneaking snacks. It was stupid and casual and perfect. And then, somewhere between jokes about cereal mascots and mocking each other's spoon technique, he leaned in and kissed me. No hesitation this time. Just lips to lips, hands on my hips, his body pressed against mine like it had a right to be there. And for the first time since that night, I let myself stop questioning it. Let myself feel it. We didn't make it to the couch. The kitchen floor was cold, the tile rough against my back, but I didn't care. All I could feel was his hands under my shirt, his mouth on my neck, the weight of him above me, and the sound of him saying my name like it meant something. And when it was over, when we were curled up in a tangled heap of limbs and stolen kitchen towels and half-eaten cereal, he said something that stuck with me. "I've never wanted something like this before." "Like what?" I asked. He looked at me, really looked. "Something that scares the shit out of me because it actually matters." And yeah, that was exactly what this was. For a few weeks, it worked. It shouldn't have, but it did. Liam started showing up on random nights. Never planned, never announced. I'd be halfway through a paper, or mindlessly scrolling on my phone when the knock would come. Always soft, always deliberate. I'd open the door and he'd step in like he belonged there. We never talked about it, never defined it. But he started leaving a toothbrush in my bathroom. One of his hoodies ended up on the back of my chair. His cologne started lingering on my pillows longer than I wanted to admit. We didn't go out. We didn't get dinner or hold hands in public or take cute photos. There were no labels, no stories to tell our friends, no conversations about who we were to each other. But every time he showed up, locked the door behind him, and kissed me like he hadn't touched anyone in weeks, it felt real. And that was enough. Until it wasn't. One night, about a month after that first time, Evan called me. "You doing anything?" he asked. I figured we could catch up. It's been a minute. And just like that, my stomach dropped. Because I'd seen Evan maybe twice in the last month. And both times, Liam had been weirdly absent. No overlapping visits, no risk of running into each other. We'd both been dancing around this invisible line. And Evan was the line. But I said yes. Because I missed my friend. Because I couldn't live in this secret forever. We met up at a dive bar near campus. He looked the same. Messy hair, hoodie too big for his frame, always leaning back like he couldn't be bothered to sit straight. "You look different," he said after a drink or two. "How so?" he squinted. "I don't know. Happier? Like you're getting laid or something." I choked on my beer. He laughed. "I'm kidding. Mostly." I rolled my eyes. "You're an idiot." But that stupid comment stuck in my head all night. Because he wasn't wrong. I did feel different. And that scared me. Because no matter how careful we were, people weren't dumb. They noticed things. And the longer this went on, the more obvious it would become. Later that night, back at my place, I was still buzzing from the conversation when Liam showed up. I opened the door without thinking. "You were with Evan," he said immediately. His tone wasn't angry, just cautious. "Yeah, he wanted to catch up, nothing weird." He stepped inside, pulling his hoodie off. "You tell him?" "No." He didn't say anything, just sat down on the edge of my bed, like the weight of the night had hit him all at once. "I'm not ashamed of this," I said quietly. "I just don't know how to tell him. He's your brother." "I know. I'm his best friend." He nodded again. Then he looked at me, and something in his face cracked open. Not frustration, not guilt, fear. "I'm not good at this," he said. "Relationships, feelings, talking about stuff. But when I'm with you, I feel..." He stopped. I sat beside him, close enough to touch, but not quite. "You don't have to say it yet," I said. "But if we're gonna keep doing this, we can't keep hiding. You know that, right?" He nodded. "I know. He didn't promise anything. He didn't make a plan. But when he pulled me into bed and held me like I was the only steady thing in his world, I believed him. For now. I should have known this secret wouldn't last. All it took was one careless mistake. One moment where we forgot to be careful. Liam had stayed over, something he was doing more often lately. We didn't talk about it. It just happened. He'd show up late, slip inside with that familiar knock, and stay the night like it was the most natural thing in the world. Except this time, it wasn't just any night. This time, he left his hoodie on my kitchen chair. The same gray hoodie with the faded logo Evan would immediately recognize. I didn't notice it was there until the door buzzed the next morning. I hadn't even showered yet. My hair was a mess. Liam was still in my bed. I cracked the door open, expecting maybe a package or a neighbor. But it was Evan, holding 2 iced coffees and grinning like nothing in the world had shifted. "Brought you caffeine," he said, stepping in without waiting for permission. "You looked like hell last night." I didn't even have time to respond before his eyes flicked to the hoodie on the chair. His face changed. Just a little. Enough for me to notice. "Is that Liam's?" he asked, his tone too casual. "Shit." I scrambled. Yeah, he left it here the night we all hung out. You remember, a few weeks ago. Evan nodded slowly, eyes still fixed on the hoodie. Weird. I don't remember him wearing that one. I laughed, too forced. Maybe I'm wrong. The air in the room felt tighter now. I prayed Liam wouldn't wake up. I prayed he wouldn't come out to grab water shirtless, the way he usually did. I prayed Evan would take the damn coffee back and leave. But Evan wasn't stupid. He was putting things together. He didn't say anything right away. Just sat down on the couch, sipping from his drink, watching me. You've been different lately, he said finally. Happier, distracted, weirdly unavailable. I didn't answer. You seeing someone? The question was casual, but I felt the weight in it. I took a breath. Yeah. He raised his eyebrows. And it's complicated. He leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly. Is it someone I know? I didn't answer. The silence gave me away. He sat forward, his voice quieter. Is it Liam? Still, I said nothing. Dude, he said, sitting up straight, tell me it's not my brother. And now I had to say something. I didn't plan for it, I said, voice tight. It just happened. One night, he offered me a ride home from your party. We talked. We connected. Evan stood up, pacing the room now. So what? You're dating my brother behind my back? Sleeping with him? How long has this been going on? I stayed quiet, letting him vent. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly overwhelmed. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't know where it was going, I said. And because I didn't want to lose you. That stopped him. He looked at me for a long moment, jaw tight, emotions all over his face. Then the bedroom door creaked open. Liam stepped out, hair messy, wearing nothing but sweats and confusion on his face. Hey, he started, then froze when he saw Evan. No one said anything. The silence was so thick it felt like the air had turned solid. Evan turned to him. You couldn't have just told me? Liam looked down. It wasn't that simple. You're my brother, Evan said. He's my best friend. You don't think I deserve to know? Liam stepped forward. We weren't sure what it was at first. And now? Liam glanced at me, then back at Evan. Now I'm sure. Evan let out a bitter laugh. Well, I hope you two are happy together. He turned, grabbed his coffee, and walked out. The door slammed behind him. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the empty space he'd left behind. Liam came up behind me, resting a hand on my back. I'm sorry, he said softly. I turned to him. We knew this day would come. Yeah. You still think this is worth it? I asked, voice shaking. He looked at me, and for the first time in days, didn't hesitate. Yes. The days after Evan found out felt like a storm that hadn't quite broken yet. He didn't text, didn't call. I didn't expect him to, but the silence still hurt in places I hadn't braced for. This was someone who'd been in my life for years, who knew my birthday without checking, who could finish my sentences, who could sense when something was wrong even through a text. And now he was gone. Liam stayed close. He didn't push, didn't try to fix it with words. He'd just show up when he could, make dinner with me in silence, kiss me slow when I couldn't bring myself to say how bad I felt. He never told me it would be okay. He just stayed. And somehow, that mattered more. It was a week later when I saw Evan again. We ran into each other outside a coffee shop by campus. I was walking out with a drink when he was walking in, and we stopped short. Both of us froze, cups in hand, like we weren't sure who was supposed to speak first. He broke the silence. Hey, I said back. He looked tired. Not angry, just tired. Like he'd burned through all the shock and rage and was left with something heavier. He nodded toward the sidewalk. You got a second? I did. We walked without speaking for a bit, then sat down on a quiet bench under a half-dead tree. Classic winter campus scenery. Cold breeze, smoky breath, people walking past without noticing anything unusual about the two guys sitting side by side, trying not to fall apart. "I've been thinking," he said eventually, "about you. About him. About why it pissed me off so much." I didn't say anything, just let him talk. "It wasn't the fact that you were close," he said. "It was the fact that you didn't tell me." I nodded. "I was scared." "Of me? Of losing you?" He stared ahead for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah. That's what got me. Not the closeness. Not the secret. Just, you were always the one I trusted, and then you kept this from me." "I know. I hated him for it too," Evan said. "I was mad at both of you. But mostly, I was mad that something big was happening in your life, and I didn't get to be part of it." His voice broke a little at the end, and I felt a knot in my chest that I hadn't realized was still there. "I'm sorry," I said. "I never wanted to hurt you." He wiped at his nose with his sleeve. "I know." We sat in silence again. Then he gave me this crooked half smile I hadn't seen in weeks. "Is he good to you?" I nodded. "He is." "Then that's all I care about." That was it. No long speech, no dramatic forgiveness. Just that. Simple and real. And enough. We hugged before we left. Not long, not perfect, but it felt like a thread being tied back together. Maybe not the same as before, but strong in a new way. That night, when Liam came over, I told him everything. He stood in the doorway, jacket still half on, watching me carefully. "You really told him?" I nodded. "We talked. I think we're okay." A slow smile spread across his face. He stepped closer, brushing a thumb across my cheek. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I'm not used to this," I admitted. "Not used to someone choosing me, sticking around." "Well," he said, "get used to it." Then he kissed me. Soft, sure, like he meant it. That night we lay on my bed, legs tangled, his hand resting over mine, and for once, I didn't think about the past. I didn't think about what we'd broken to get here. I thought about what we were building. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't simple. But it was ours. And it was real.